Hi there and welcome to Okemo Valley TV. I'm Patrick Cody, and today I am joined by our special guest, Sadie Wood, who is a student, a senior, who'll be graduating from Green Mountain Union High School and a resident of Proctorsville. And she's come here today to share a story about the recent student walkout that she helped coordinate at Green Mountain in response to, or I guess in recognition of the 1-month anniversary after the tragic shooting in Parkland in Florida. So welcome, Sadie. Thanks for being here and telling the story about how you and your cohorts at Green Mountain got involved with this. So first off, tell me what happened and why you chose the 1-month anniversary of Parkland to demonstrate.
So the walkout that we participated in was part of a national walkout, which was hosted by the Youth Empower movement. And they sort of set up the date and the time and the setup of the walkout. So it was on the 1-month anniversary of the Parkland shooting, and they chose that just to recognize part of the mission of the walkout was to show respect and solidarity with the community of Parkland, Florida that was affected by the shooting.
Mm-hmm. And what about it? What struck a chord? Obviously, I mean, it was a very tragic event, but why do you think there was this groundswell, at your school in particular after it happened?
I think that what was different about this event in relation to all the, sadly, many other ones that have happened in the past is, first of all, the students at the Parkland High School, the survivors of the shooting, were really involved in activism, and they sort of started this whole movement. So from that school, because they have such a voice, because they were in the spotlight because of what happened to them, they had a place that they could come from and people would listen to them and they could start a movement like this. So that sort of got everyone else involved. And also I just think that there's only so many times this can happen until people are fed up, and it's sadly happened a lot, and this is sort of the youth saying, if no one else is going to do anything about this, then we are.
Mm-hmm. And what was so just backing up for a sec, you did this in coordination with other schools, and you said you got help from a national organization. Can you explain a little bit of that relationship?
So the organization that started the Women's March, that was a few months, maybe a year ago, they sort of started a new branch off of that called Youth Empower, which students sort of started with the help of some adults, but it was student motivated, this idea of having a national walkout on the 1-month anniversary of the shooting. So they sort of started to publicize that. I think that I read about it a lot on social media, people were hearing about it, and then we all sort of got together and thought, like, what if we do something like this? So on that day, over 3,000 schools participated in the walkout. Nationwide, with over 1 million students walking out of class. So
At the same time?
Yes, at 10 o'clock. So that was, like, pretty awesome. It was, I guess, sort of sad that it has to happen to make change, that kids have to say, I'm taking this into my own hands. I feel unsafe at school. But it was a really cool result, and I was really glad that we got to participate in it, that we had heard about it and had time, and the permission and support of our administration to participate in this nationwide walkout.
And how many students at Green Mountain demonstrated along with you?
I believe that I've heard estimates, about 100 students walked out of about a 300 plus student body. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's an exact number.
And can you talk about, so you're bringing this issue to the forefront. Have you had dialogue about it either in class or outside of class? I'm just wondering if you have your finger on the pulse of what the climate is at Green Mountain in the response to your involvement with this demonstration. So
we had, after the Parkland shooting, there was a lot of dialogue in classrooms. I think we did a drill right after that, sort of maybe to help people feel more safe. And in a lot of classrooms, instead of class time. They took class time out to talk about it and sort of process it. So I thought that was pretty useful. And then after the walkout, people talked about it a little bit. It seemed like a general support, but there were some people that didn't agree with the reasons we were walking out, but that's okay.
And what did you do during the walkout? I think we have a couple pieces of short video clips that some students had shared with us, so we can see you kind of walking out and a group of you talking or presenting some information. Can you just describe what you were doing there?
So at about 9:55, we had permission to run an announcement over the loudspeakers. This was a completely voluntary walkout. Not everyone participated and not everyone had to participate, but we announced the walkout. If you'd like to participate in the walkout against gun violence and to show solidarity with the students in Parkland, then you can leave your classes now. So that was about, it was a few minutes before class ended, so people were in the hallways anyway. So we were, everybody silently walked out to the front of the school. And it was just such a cool moment for me, I think for all of us that helped organize it. We had no idea how many people were gonna walk out. We tried to publicize it, but we sort of ended up we're like, oh my gosh, it's the day before and nobody knows about it. And we were like, what if it's just us? So we walked out first and we were standing outside and we just saw so many people coming out the doors to participate. So that was really awesome how many people participated. And then the group of people who helped organize this, we'd met before and sort of come up with a game plan. So we read a little introduction about, we took it off of the website for the Youth Empower walkout and about how this is a national movement, and why we're doing it. And then we read our mission statement. So we created our own mission statement based off of the website and the personal needs of our school. So we read that out loud, and then we observed 4 minutes of silence, which was the duration of the shooting. Most of the national walkouts did 17 minutes, but we figured that as it was...
What's the number, 17?
17 is how many people were killed. So that was what was on the website and what most schools did. But
you chose the duration, the time
yeah,
frame.
we chose 4 minutes, which was the duration of the shooting, because it was shorter, so it was more realistic. We weren't missing as much class time because we did have some speech prepared, and we were working with the administration. So it was almost sort of a compromise that we wouldn't miss a whole class. We'd just be out for a little bit, and because it was also winter and we didn't have anywhere to sit, so it was sort of unrealistic for us to be standing in a group for 17 minutes. So we stood in silence for 4 minutes, and then we read just a little conclusion and people went back to class.
What was the gist of the conclusion that you read?
We had a quote from I believe the Secretary of Education, which was encouraging students
Was that Rebecca Holcomb?
Yes. Encouraging students
outgoing
to
Secretary of Education. She just resigned, yeah.
To report if they hear something concerning, even if they think it's just a joke, to say something to someone, because especially in regards to the Parkland shooting, there were lots of comments online that the shooter had posted, and people had said, oh yeah, I always knew he was going to be the one to shoot our school or whatever. And I think it was in response to that she wants people to, if you always know someone's going to be the school shooter or something, say something and maybe it won't happen. Or if you hear anything concerning. And then we also talked about that as the youth in our country and our school, we have the right and the opportunity to have our voices heard. And it was just sort of a message to our legislators, even if our individual message wasn't necessarily heard, as of course the nationwide message was pretty prominent that we're going to be voting. Some of us are already able to vote, and in the next few years we're all going to be coming up and being able to vote, and we're going to vote for politicians that support legislature to help us be safe and who don't accept donations from organizations that don't have the best interests of the students in mind.
And so let me ask you this. You mentioned about, people need to do something if they recognize somebody might be a threat. How did you and your peers take it when you heard just a few days after that somebody from Vermont had been arrested on suspicion of performing a school shooting in Fairhaven?
So I did hear about that. There wasn't a lot of dialogue about it in school, but I read about it online. And I mean, it's concerning, you think, especially in Vermont. We have some of the most lenient gun laws in the country, but our gun violence deaths or injuries aren't as high as other states that have such lenient gun laws. So it sort of seems like you think you're from Vermont, like, oh, it's different. Like, we don't have that problem here. We have like basically no regulations on guns, but that would never happen. And it was sort of like, yeah, like this is, even though it may not be as big of an issue as in other states, like this is still an issue here, and we still need legislation, and like it's still a problem that in our little state of Vermont.
Have you been following any of the gun legislation that has actually passed through the Vermont legislature?
Yes.
And do you think that's a good thing, that now
Yes,
there's more
believe-
stringent controls, and it's just waiting for the governor's signature?
Yes,
we're talking
that's
about
what
the
I
Senate
just
bill.
read.
Yeah, what's that?
That's what I just read.
Oh.
It's still waiting for the governor. Yeah, so I definitely would support that. I think that just on the topic of gun control, a misconception that people have, especially in Vermont, that I've heard so many people say, is that gun control means taking away guns. And even the legislature that just passed wasn't about taking away any guns. It was about magazines and how many bullets they can hold. So just that, like, gun control doesn't mean that guns are illegal all of a sudden and you can't go out hunting with your friends, which, like, of course is a super important part of Vermont culture, and like that's totally allowed.
I was going to ask that because you must have some of your peers at Green
Totally,
Mountain that are
yeah.
hunters and come from a long hunting tradition in their families and so forth. So I was wondering if you've had any kind of conversations with them about this matter.
Right. So I think a lot of people are just scared that they won't be able to like practice their hobby, which is such a big part of culture in America, but a lot in Vermont, which is just like, you're not choosing guns or no guns. It's just like more regulation on guns. And most people who are like avid Vermont hunters probably wouldn't even be affected by most of this legislation. If you have like a good history and you don't have any like severe mental health problems, you can like easily just get a permit for your gun and like go through a background check. And like the only people that would be affected is if you do use these like assault style weapons that are being debated, like if they should be controlled or not. You just have to like make a small sacrifice and like use a different gun, which seems, I'm not a hunter myself, but it's just like that's the sacrifice you have to make for the safety of the children of our nation. Like nobody's asking you to give up hunting, but like just use a different gun, or like you might even have to give up your one hobby of like really quickly target shooting. But that people are just have this fear of like the government is trying to take away all my guns. It's like, it's just like regulation that probably won't affect most people in Vermont that like to hunt.
We've started to get into, I mean, whether people like it or not, guns is a hotly politicized issue, as we are seeing with this legislature that has moved through the Vermont House and Senate. Having said that, we were talking offline earlier before the cameras were rolling about, some of the backlash that you and your peers had received after the demonstration from people, online comments and so forth. How did that make you feel to be front and center of this, hotly, politicized issue?
I mean,
at least on a local level.
Right. It was sort of like, I guess upsetting a little bit just to see so many people disagreeing, or like if there were some people commented on articles or whatever that like really had an argument and they were just like trying to like make their point known. And like, of course, there are always going to be people who disagree on every issue, and like that's fine, and you just need to be able to talk about it. Like if someone comes up to me and is like, I don't think there should be any gun control, I hope that I would listen to what they have to say if they're presenting a valid argument. And it was just sort of disheartening to see people weren't doing that at all and were just commenting like mean things about like high school students. So it's just like, really? But it's okay. People are always going to disagree, and like they're the people that are sitting at home commenting on Facebook, and like there's always going to be people sitting at home on their couch commenting on Facebook, and you're just going to have to like be like, okay, people don't agree with me, that's fine. You can listen to them and think about changing your mind, and you're like, we are the ones who were doing something, participating in this awesome national movement that caught the attention of lots of politicians, and even like probably helped to start this trend of more regulation in Vermont. So it's like we are trying to make change and are open to listening to other people's opinions, but like just like sharing stuff on Facebook and commenting mean things about us is like, it's not going to do anything anyway, so it doesn't
It's not going to slow you down, in
Right.
other words. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
You're going to do what you do.
Right. Unless, I don't mean that like I'm so set in my opinions that nobody can change my mind. Like I'm totally open to discussion, probably not on a Facebook comment thread, but to discussion about, with real points, but just being like, you guys are the Hitler Youth is like, nobody's going to listen to you.
Yeah, that was actually a comment. Yeah.
Like, I guess that was probably an exaggeration of it. But people were definitely comparing us to like, actually, yeah, the Hitler Youth and like the communist youth that were like forced by the government to do things.
So what are the next steps? I mean, I know you're a graduating senior. You only have a couple months left, right? And I know you're on the cusp of making a big decision about where to go to school. So your trajectory is most likely taking you away from here, soon. At least for your next 4 years. So what can the lasting legacy of this movement that you helped start at Green Mountain, what can it be? I mean, is it gonna you think it'll build and carry momentum, or
I hope
peter
so.
out?
I think that less of like a movement that needs to stay within Green Mountain. Hopefully it just brought people's attention who hadn't necessarily, say I'm not involved in politics or whatever, got these people like to start thinking about these issues, and like maybe this isn't just a political legislation issue, but it's like a safety issue for the children of our nation. So hopefully it just got people talking. It did. I heard like some dialogue starting, which is awesome. Just got people thinking about these issues, and like I said, the people who walked out in 4, 3, 2, 1, or like no years are going to be able to vote. And so hopefully maybe that a movement would continue at school, but that the people who witnessed it and participated in would use this platform to vote for what we think would make our country safer.
Great. Well, Sadie, thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
And sharing your story. We did receive your news release just like a day before you were going to be demonstrating, and so we put out the offer for have you come in and talk about it after. Thanks, and congratulations on everything you have going on.
Thank you.
And that's it. So we'll see you next time.